Thank you so much, Mr. Senate President. I want to say first and foremost, it's been a very frustrating privilege to serve on the Budget Committee for my short time in the Senate. And this budget just represents bad public policy and is wrong for New Jersey and the citizens of New Jersey for the reasons my colleagues have already stated here and in committee just this past Tuesday. But I'm going to focus my comments on the forgotten taxpayers and how they are being impacted by this budget. I have stated from very early on in my time in the Senate that we have yet to hear about taxpayer justice in the state of New Jersey. The bottom line is this. This budget, again, represents an orgy of pork and unnecessary spending and leaves our taxpayers to mop up the floor while they're being asked to pay for it. I promise not to dwell on past tax increases or go off the topic of this specific bill, but the points I want to make need to be placed in context. Revenues that are part of this budget came from tax increases over the past 3 years on employer taxes, income taxes, parking taxes, payroll taxes, and insurance taxes, amongst many others. One of the biggest tax increases over the past 2 years has been a highly regressive employee payroll tax. It falls disproportionately on the working poor and middle class and is taking more than $1,000 annually out of many employees' annual take-home pay. Even so-called savings in this budget for New Jersey Transit come on the backs of a 33% toll increase on our highways. And again, I want to point out that in my legislative district, we barely have any presence of New Jersey Transit. The budget before us today increases spending from the 11% proposed by the governor a few short months ago to 16%. And that doesn't even include the enormous spending in the $6.5 billion federal block grant or the $1.2 billion capital improvements account being created later. The real spending increase, after all the dust settles with this budget, is well over 20%. Even the Star Ledger and NJ.com, hardly of bastions of right-wing propaganda or conservative journalism, noted the extreme excesses in this budget. They are counting the pork, which has been added behind closed doors and in the darkness of night in the last 48 hours, exceeding $500 million. Trenton should be ashamed and embarrassed for its profligacy with other people's money. You know, the problem with other people's money, as Margaret Thatcher once pointed out, is that you eventually run out of it. Instead, I keep seeing backslapping and hearing celebrations in the State House halls. In addition to refraining from what amounts to a porkapalooza, you could have listened to constructive taxpayer solutions my colleagues and I offered over the past several months and in a budget resolution we made public weeks ago. Senator Oraho spoke passionately about one proposal, how we could and should be getting more revenue that New York has essentially been stealing from New Jersey while reducing their taxes at the same time. I know that you, Mr. Senate President, have supported that effort, and so has Senator Sarlo and others in this room. But for some reason, the governor and the Assembly Speaker apparently get a little too excited by that old New York tourist theme, I love New York. They rejected our proposal. The governor and the Speaker apparently love New York so much, they let New York harm our residents with high taxes and rob our revenue that could be used for property tax relief. Maybe if that money could be used to pay for the pork that they love so much, they would try a little harder to get some of it. My colleagues and I also proposed a $600 million of spending restraints to make way for more important priorities that included tax relief. Even the easiest of these spending restraints were ignored. Think about it. $600 million could have doubled the earned income tax credit. My colleagues and I also proposed to use some of the federal block grant for the purpose of stabilizing an unemployment insurance fund that is mired in $1 billion of debt. Other states long ago announced they would use these funds for this purpose with broad bipartisan support. Rather than embrace this common sense approach or even debate it, it was ignored, and more than $5 billion of federal funds were left for the governor to decide how to spend later in a back room with a token review by the Joint Budget Oversight Committee. There are consequences for taxpayers. A series of tax increases on all employers that will reach more than $1 billion over 3 years could have been prevented. Instead, it won't be. Ironically, the timing of employer tax increases that could have avoided will begin next week over July 4th weekend. And there are 2 more increases scheduled in 2022 and 2023. Nothing could make it more clear how disdainful of New Jersey taxpayers this governor and his apologists truly are. Finally, next June, there will be a $600 million increase in taxes on Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. Despite the tax increase going into effect, the revenue is not reflected in this budget. My colleagues and I proposed to eliminate the tax increase because the funds remain unappropriated. Alternatively, we propose supportive legislation introduced by Senator Singer and Senator Bucco to allocate the funds to serve rural and, yes, urban areas whose people often lack appropriate health services. Neither idea was embraced, but that tax lives on. It will no doubt be announced one day as though it is a surprise windfall, and then be whacked up in true Jersey style behind closed doors. For all of those reasons, Mr. Senate President, I must vote no on this budget. Thank you.